Well, this weekend in the Championship certainly didn't disappoint. Loads to talk over. Let's jump into it all. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We are now heading into another international break, which is a little bit annoying, but we've got plenty to digest in today's video. As always, if you're at a game this weekend, let me know down below everything that you made of all the action. If you do go to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If you hit 300 likes on today's video, that would be massively appreciated. We'll have an update on the prediction leaderboard coming out next week. Obviously, that will include all of the weekend predictions and the ones previously to that in midweek. I think we'll have quite a few changes in that updated predictions table. But without any further ado, let's talk about some of these matches. Next up then we go to Oakwell, where it's Barnsley going up against Hull. Now fair play to Hull, because I didn't think they had it in them going into this game. Given their run of form coming into this one, Barnsley looked to have maybe turned a little bit of a corner with that latest win over Derby, but massive from Hull here, and it was really George Honeyman who was the guy pulling the strings for them. Honeyman's been an interesting one this season because he was obviously brilliant for them in League One last season, probably their talisman in that promotion season, but started this season out with an injury. It's taken him a little bit of time to get up and going, but had a hand in both the goals, scoring the first one and assisting the second for Lewis Potter. Nathan Baxter, who came in net for Hull for this one, I also thought looked really good. Barnsley certainly had their spells when they were on top and had their fair share of chances, but he was level to absolutely everything. And what this does is it makes the bottom three really interesting now. Had Hull lost this game, they would have been 6 points adrift, but they now only found themselves 3 points behind Peterborough going into this international break. For Barnsley, it still leaves them in this bit of a damned position where they need to get this next managerial appointment absolutely spot on. They have this international break now to have a little bit of breathing room to try and get that decision spot on, but big win for Hull there, albeit I don't think anyone's getting too carried away with this, because what we need to see Hull now is we need to see them building from this performance and this result. You know, if they're to go on another similar losing streak after this international break, then this result will have realistically been all for nothing. But if they can build on it, and there were some more positives to take from this result, we may be seeing a bit more competitiveness in that bottom three. Next up then we head to Ewood Park, and what a bonkers result this was given how the last game week went. But Blackburn 3, Sheffield United 1, coming off the back of a 7-0 defeat to Fulham. Blackburn more than bounced back in this one. It was a good start for the away side as well. Ryan Brewster finally getting on the score sheet, another assist for Billy Sharp in that one, and at that point, you know, scoring just a couple minutes into this game, it would have been quite easy for Blackburn to just roll over, you know, the crowd to turn on them a little bit after how midweek went. But fair play for the fight back, and I think that this game was always going to be a little bit of a banana skin for Sheffield United, given the style of play and how they clash between the two sides. You know, Sheffield United can be a little bit slow at times in terms of the build-up. You know, they want to try and kill you with possession and create chances that way, whereas Blackburn are quite happy to be without the ball because they do have those players who can just pick you off and counter-attacks. And I thought that Brereton and Poveda especially looked to do that throughout the afternoon. What's probably most concerning for Sheffield United at the moment is actually that defensive record, which, if we're comparing it to like the top three at the moment, because that's where we all expected Sheffield United to sort of be coming into this season, you know, battling with those other parachute teams, their defensive record is absolutely nowhere near. They've conceded 26 goals so far this season. They've not kept a clean sheet in any of their last 8 matches. And I think this is a problem throughout the team. I think it's a problem with the goalkeeper at times, with the back 4 or 5, whoever they go with, and the midfield as well, which doesn't give them a lot of protection in those defensive areas. So yeah, Sheffield United 18th in the table, 17 games into this season isn't good enough. But for Blackburn, what a way to bounce back. Next up then, speaking of bouncing back, it was Bournemouth 4, Swansea 0, and I think this might have been Bournemouth's best win of the season, given they lost that one in midweek to Preston. And we did say that, you know, we all expected Bournemouth to have a little bit of a wobble at one point of this season, and, you know, had they dropped points in this one as well, going into the international break, they had that sort of hanging over their heads a little bit, but to bounce back in style like they did here, it was absolutely fantastic. What we said in midweek in the sort of criticisms we had of Bournemouth were they were quite flat really, but Scott Parker switched it around a little bit, particularly on that left-hand side. Leif Davis came into that left-back role. It was Memphis playing there in midweek, who can be, you know, quite assured defensively, but maybe doesn't give you all too much going forward. But Leif Davis looked really good, and Jaden Anthony coming back into the equation as well. He got a brace in this one, as well as Dom Solanke, and going forward, they were just really up for this one, Bournemouth, weren't they? I think they created 9 big chances in this game, which is night and day compared to how they were in the final third in midweek. And from Swansea's point of view, I mean, this can happen against a very good Bournemouth side, but they did look quite open and exposed. You know, what Preston did quite well was we were quite rigid in how we set up for this one, and when that sort of first goal goes in for Bournemouth, I think they really sensed blood in this one. So yeah, a great way to bounce back there for Bournemouth. Just wasn't to be Swansea's down the road in this one. Next up then, speaking about a team that really needed the win this weekend, Cardiff got just that 2-1 win over Huddersfield, which gives them a little bit more breathing room going into this international break. And it was a bit of a disaster of a start to this game, to be honest with you. Short back pass lead to the Huddersfield goal. Huddersfield go 1-0 up, and from that point onwards, sort of going into the second half, they did have chances to make it 2, and had they got that second goal, maybe we don't get the Cardiff fight back. You know, Danny Ward had one particularly good chance which came off the post, but it just wasn't to be, and in the end it was Cardiff getting back into this one. And Kiefer Moore, who's not really had things fall for him so far this season, you know, spent a bit of time on the bench so far, and when he has been in the team, things haven't quite been falling for him like they were last season. But I know we've praised Huddersfield a lot for being a good team from set pieces so far this season, but Cardiff more so, just because of the personnel that they've got in this squad, are always going to be a threat from those situations. Kiefer Moore gets that equaliser, and then in the 93rd minute, it's a brilliant ball which is hooked towards the far post. He just sort of hangs in the air and gets that header, and at full time and after that goal went in, I think it was probably like more relief than anything that they finally managed to get that win over the line. So yeah, good stuff there from Cardiff. They also have a bit of time now over this international break to properly sort of flesh out what they want to do next in terms of, you know, the manager that's coming in long term and things like that. From Huddersfield's point of view, frustrating given the position that they got themselves into, but Cardiff desperately needed that win. Coming up next, and what a game we had between Coventry and Bristol City, which really goes to hammer home what has been really quite a dismal run of form recently for Bristol City, which has seen them plummet down the Championship. We said at the time, but that win they had not too long ago over Barnsley sort of felt like it was just papering over some cracks, and they were more than on show in this one. The game-changing moment comes on the stroke of half-time when Coventry go down to 10 men, Bristol City are awarded the penalty, and they go into half-time 1-0 up, and you're thinking heading into that second half that Bristol City are going to play with a level of sort of control and balance to their side, but that just wasn't really the case in the second half, and it was weird how quickly this game ended up getting away from Bristol City. They saw less of the ball in the second half and had less of the chances despite playing 45 minutes with that extra man. Coventry get back into it with a penalty of their own. Bristol City then re-established their lead through Andy Vyman, but even at that stage it was just then Coventry piling the players forward. Callum O'Hare gets on the score sheet to make it 2-2, a player that I've really enjoyed watching so far this season, but the one sort of critique we've had of him is he needs to up his numbers in terms of the actual goals that he's scoring, but took that goal really well. And then in the 92nd minute, Matty Godden stepping up again, and I must say it was a wonderful assist from Kelly, who sort of just lofts it ever so slightly with the outside of his foot to playing Godden, and another injury time goal that Bristol City have conceded here. If this was sort of like a one-off, I think we'd, you know, learn to generally accept that because these things happen, but it's been such a repeated pattern throughout the season, and the fact that they were playing against 10 men for so long of this game really doesn't leave you in a good situation if you're a Bristol City fan at the moment. I do think that Nigel Pearson is under quite a bit of pressure now, but from Coventry's point of view, what a way to get back to winning matches at home that was. Next up then we go to Luton up against Stoke, and a good win for Stoke in this one makes it back-to-back wins for them heading into this international break. It did feel as if at one part of the season that we'd lost Stoke a little bit. You know, they went on that little bit of a winless run defensively, looked a little bit shaky and things like that, but back on track in this one with an impressive clean sheet and really good 3 points on the road when Kenilworth Road has been a fairly tough place to go to so far this season. And the one real moment of quality in this game came from the goal that Stoke scored. I think that just naturally from like casual viewers and things like that, it will take Stoke a while, and they'll probably never lose that sort of preconceived notion about them that they are this sort of like Tony Pulis direct side and things like that. But the sort of football they've been playing so far this season, it couldn't be further away from that previous iteration of Stoke. Brilliant build-up play for this goal, playing it out from the back, having patience, and then when those gaps do open up in the opposition defence, having those defence splitting passes, going on the outside and getting those balls into the box in a nice nice finish from Brown in the end. Luton did give it a little bit more of a go, to be fair to them, in the second half, and probably did enough to get a goal. You know, on another day they hit the crossbar. Bursic was decent in this one. He handled everything that Luton threw his way, but just wasn't to be their day in the final third. And Stoke, yeah, good win for that one heading into this international break. Next up then to the Den, we've got Millwall drawing 1 apiece with Derby. Quite an even game up until that red card, and then towards the end of this match Millwall probably had the chances to go on and win this one, but a little bit of slack finishing maybe in the final third ended up costing them. But a point in the end being the result. Eberseli with the opener for Derby just before half time. Really good finish as well. Everyone else seemed to get sort of like sucked in towards the ball. Tom Lawrence just plays it off to the right hand side, and then quite a composed finish for the youngster. I think he's got a massive future ahead of him. I remember being quite impressed with him actually when Derby came to Deepdale earlier on in the season when he was playing as a right back. But yeah, really good on the ball, carries it very well and sort of drifts in and out of players. So yeah, really good for him to get his first goal of the season and get up and running. But unfortunately for Derby, couldn't go into half time with the leader. Scott Malone levelled things up to make it 1-1. Nathan Byrne was then shown a red card, second bookable offence for a bit of a tactical foul on the halfway line, bringing down Mason Bennett, when Millwall themselves run a little bit of a counter attack. And previously to that, like I said, in terms of like chances created and things like that, looked fairly even in this one. And then Millwall had that a bit of a flurry towards the end, having that man advantage, but finished level in the end. Millwall just 1 point off the top 6 now. Derby back to drawing matches like they've done for a lot of the season so far. Next up then though, we head to the City Ground, and with Preston this season it's just constantly felt like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and that's exactly what this one felt like. You know, riding the high of that win in midweek over Bournemouth, we were more than taken back down to reality with Forest absolutely thumping us in this one. The first big moment from North End came with Patrick Bauer going off after 20 or so minutes with an injury, and to be honest with you, at the best of times this season, I don't think we've been great at the back end. That Everson's covered for some shoddy defending throughout the season, but with and without Bauer in that back line is absolutely night and day, and I think we absolutely collapsed without him in there. Whiteman gives away a bit of a cheap penalty, and then from that point onwards I think that Forest just sensed blood in this game, and fair play to them, because I don't think we would have got this sort of performance from Forest you know, a few months ago under Sheff Utd. Callback with the second, no idea what Brad Potts is doing for that one, in a sort of half-hearted attempt to try and block it, sort of cowers away from the ball a little bit. 2-0 Forest at half-time, and then Grabber makes it 3. Some lovely work from Brennan Johnson in the build-up to that one. But from North End's point of view, really poor from an attacking sense, especially after how well we'd done in midweek. Emile Reece was incredibly isolated. I think this has happened a few times this season when Maguire's not played. You know, it happened in the Blackpool game, when Sinclair was up front with him. This one when Potts was up front with him. We really had a lack of quality throughout the pitch in this one, to be honest with you. The mood around Frankie McAvoy still isn't great at the club, but I don't think anything is going to change particularly soon, to be honest with you. That's just what I realistically think. But yeah, fair play to Forest. Good way to go into the international break. Next up then, and another win for Fulham. 1-0 against Peterborough. Maybe not quite the goal fest that a lot of us thought this would be after the back of that 7-0 win in midweek, but all 3 points count the same, and another goal for Mitrovic for the season. We're at the start of November and he's already scored 20 goals. Do you understand how absolutely obscene that is? But the vast majority of Mitrovic's goals, I was watching a compilation of them all just before, but the vast majority of them have been sort of one-touch finishes, you know, either with his head or different parts of his body and things like that. And he is that sort of right place, right time. Positionally, he's absolutely superb, and he's got that service coming from absolutely everywhere. It was Cabano with the assist in this one, some lovely work done the left-hand side, chips the ball into MITRO to make it 1-0 to Fulham. And Peterborough, to be honest, despite not having all too much of the ball in this one, they had their fair share of chances. Clark Harris had a great chance to level it later on in the match as well, but just couldn't quite get that one over the line as it came back off the post. But yeah, Fulham looking very strong at the moment, and we do have quite a bit of a gap that's opening up now between the top 2 and the rest of the chasing pack. After that, we then go to the Hawthorns, where we had West Brom drawing 1 apiece with Middlesbrough, but it's mostly off the field sort of issues that we'll be talking about when it comes to West Brom and Middlesbrough. But we'll talk briefly about the game first of all. A nice goal from Coburn for Middlesbrough, smashes it into the back of the net to give them that 1-0 lead heading into half-time, and Dean Garner levels things up and it ultimately ends as that draw. Big news coming out of Middlesbrough is the departure of Neil Warnock, and how he actually knew about that going into this game, and it seemed like he'd known quite some time that the writing was on the wall. And then the immediate hiring of Chris Wilder. Now, I had quite lofty hopes for Middlesbrough this season. I had them predicted to finish in the top 6 so far this season. they have fallen short of that estimate. But with Chris Wilder coming in to what is a squad that I still think has a lot of potential at this level, I can't help but be really quite excited about what the future could hold for Middlesbrough. Obviously sad to see Neil Warnock losing his job, because at the end of the day, he is an icon of both English football and the Championship, and the Championship certainly isn't the same without him. But very much looking forward to this next Chris Wilder era, because a few of the Championship clubs who've lost their managers recently, you know, Wilder has always been that first name that's been linked to them. But I can't help but feel like I think that Middlesbrough and Wilder will be a decent fit. In terms of West Brom, like we were recently talking about Fulham and Bournemouth pulling clear of third place at the moment, it does feel like West Brom are sort of like the best of the rest, where they're not really on that top 2 level, but they do sort of have that sort of firepower in their squad to get through a lot of the games so far this season. It has felt like they have sort of just been coasting at times, West Brom, and I think there is an underlying feeling of frustration amongst a lot of the fans at the moment. So West Brom fans, I'd be interested to hear from you guys and sort of what you've made of this season heading into this next international break. But yeah, it'll certainly be an interesting future for these next 2 months. Next up then, and to St Andrews, it was Birmingham, one of the form teams in the league, going up against quite an out-of-form Reading side. So of course Reading walk away with all 3 points in this one, but probably deservedly so on the balance of the full 90 minutes. It was Birmingham who got off to a good start, a pull-back pass from Liam Moore. We saw a couple of those this weekend in the Championship that he latches onto, makes it 1-0 after 3 minutes. And at that point, the game could have got away from Reading. You know, Birmingham probably looked the best in those early stages, but the longer it went on, the more Reading seemed to grow into this one. The game-changing moment came at half-time when Paunovic brings off Puskas, who's on quite the goal drop for Reading at the moment. I didn't realise how long it had actually been since he last scored for them, but Clark comes on at half-time and steals the show in the second half with a brace. I think that we spoke about Reading's lack of goals recently, obviously with some of the injuries they have in the final third at the moment, and how they've scored from a lot of sort of low XG chances, you know, with Swift scoring a worldie every now and again and something like that. But I wouldn't at all be against, you know, giving Clark a proper run in that side now. You know, Puskas clearly isn't doing it for them at the moment. So, yeah, long may his form continue. And Reading, to be fair to them, have been good at bringing through these youngsters and giving them opportunities in the first team. So Clark could be the latest player off that conveyor belt. And for Birmingham, I mean, yeah, this run was always going to come to an end sooner rather than later, wasn't it? And as our last game to go over, we have Blackpool drawing 1 apiece with Queen's Park Rangers. Decent point, all things considered, for QPR on the road for this one. Blackpool certainly had the chances to go on and win this game, and I think it's fair to say that the match officials probably weren't the most popular people in Blackpool after the 90 minutes was up in this one. Blackpool did have the ball in the back of the net. I think it was Kenny Dougal with the header. Gary Medine follows it in, and this is where the sort of controversy started out, because he was in an offside position, but the ball had already crossed the line by the time that he got that touch on the ball. So first of all, that goal obviously should have stood. Another controversial decision was the penalty that wasn't given as well. I think that 80% of the time that probably gets given as a penalty Blackpool's way, but despite that, it was QPR who took the lead, and a wonderful goal by Willock. I mean, when QPR have those players in the final third, you know, just in a flash like that, they can come at you and make an instant impact. But lovely finish in that instance. Medine gets Blackpool back into it, this time from the penalty spot. Sonny Dieng just caught out a little bit positionally in that one, and Blackpool level things up. But all things considered, yeah, Blackpool could have easily gone on to win that game, and QPR will, I'm sure, take the point and just move on now into this next international break. But certainly a bit of frustration towards the referee in this one. There we have it though, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. In terms of my goal of the weekend, I really like the goal that Stoke scored this weekend, just because it was wonderful sort of build-up play from front to back, and I'm always a bit of a sucker for a team goal like that. Result of the weekend, I'm going to go for Hull beating Barnsley by 2-0, because had they lost that match, they seriously could have been isolated in that bottom 3, but big win for them going into this next international break. That's everything that we had to talk about for today's video though, guys. Like I mentioned before, loads of talking points to go over. Keep the discussion going in the comments down below. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.